Good evening and welcome to the candidate forum for the race for the New York State Assembly District 126 seat. I'm Laura Ladd Bierman, Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of New York State, and I will be the moderator for this candidate forum. The timekeeper is Sheila Cohen. Sheila, if you want to raise your hand, thank you. Thank you also to the candidates in this race, Dia Carabajal and John Lamondes, for participating in this forum. I would like to remind the candidates, their campaigns, and the audience that any unauthorized recording of this forum is prohibited to ensure that the content of the forum is not manipulated in any way to create false or misleading impressions of any candidate. The complete forum will be posted on the League's website and YouTube after the event. Both candidates and campaigns have agreed to this policy. The candidates have also agreed not to interrupt each other or the moderator during the forum. As the moderator, I do have the authority to pause the forum or turn off a candidate's mic if any personal attacks or inappropriate comments are being made. Questions being asked tonight have been submitted by the public and reviewed by a league committee in advance to avoid redundancy. The format for tonight's event is as follows. There will be opening statements of 1 minute each, questions and answers limited to 1 minute each, and a closing statement of 2 minutes each. Each candidate is also entitled to 2 rebuttals of 30 seconds each during the question and answer period. Sheila Cohen, the timekeeper, will hold up a sign when a candidate has 30 seconds left and when they must stop speaking. Before going live tonight, a coin was flipped to decide the order for the candidates to respond. The order of answering questions will alternate between the 2 candidates. Let's begin. The first opening statement will be made by John. John?
Thank you. Good evening, ladies, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me. For the benefit of those who don't know me, I bring to you 33 years of broad, diverse leadership, diplomatic, and business experience, 27 of which was spent as a military officer in the Army, retiring as a colonel, and having served all over the world, as well as in Iraq and Afghanistan, followed by 6 years executive experience in the radar, electronics, consulting, and agriculture industries. More importantly, though, I'm asking for your vote because of my local experience. I'm a father of 3, husband, small business owner, farmer, youth coach, former parish council member for 4.5 years, and most importantly, a very concerned citizen, which is why I'm running for office. I'm also president of the New York State Farmer Veteran Coalition and represent New York State on my industry's Legislative Action Council. I'm a New York State Farm Bureau member, board member of Paws for Purple Hearts, member of the National Defense Industry Association, and many like organizations. Most importantly, though, I'm a board member of the Onondaga County Soil and Water Conservation District, where I also function as
Thank you, John.
liaison.
Thank you. Dia?
Hi, thank you so much to the Cortland County League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Sheila, for doing this good work. I'm Dia Carabajal, and I'm running for New York State Assembly in the 126th Assembly District to represent you in the majority caucus. I have been twice elected to the Auburn School Board, and I have also served on the Auburn City Council, and I'm ready to be your voice in Albany. My core values include fighting for equity and funding for our schools, K through 12 and higher ed, advocating for the health of our Finger Lakes and our Kettle Lakes from global climate disruption, promoting economic development through arts and culture, and striving for equality and economic and social justice, supporting working families and labor. I am a professor of mathematics at Cayuga Community College. I live in Auburn, New York with my husband, Lee, who raised our son, Lee, here in Auburn. I invite the people of the 126th.
Thank you, Dia. Thank you.
Vote for me.
Now we will begin the section of questions and answers. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. 2 rebuttals during the entire event will be allowed for each candidate for 30 seconds each. Dia will answer the first question first. If you are elected, what is the first thing you will do? Dia?
Well, we have a global pandemic that is happening, and it's affected us terribly in New York State. So the first thing that we need to do is to find out what funds are available for our recovery, for our health and for our well-being, for our businesses to be reinvigorated, and also for our schools to reopen, because our quality of life has also been affected. So the first thing that I will do is to take a look at what funds are available, get them back to get them back to Central New York for this recovery, because this is the most important thing that is affecting our lives on a day-to-day basis. And that is bringing those funds back with a empathetic leadership eye will be extraordinarily important.
Thank you, Dia. John?
I've spent my entire adult life leading in many capacities. There are three things that you need to run a society. The first is external security, the military. The second is internal security, the police. And the third is a functioning economy. In order to have the functioning economy, you have to have the other two first in place. Right now, people are scared. People need confidence in their public safety system and infrastructure, and the police need to be backed by their elected officials. I have backed the blue. I will continue to do so in light of the pandemic. And no matter what, restore public order. That's the first thing that I'll do.
Thank you, John.
You're very
John,
welcome.
you'll answer the next question first.
Sure.
How can New York State assure that adequate, affordable childcare is provided for all children of all ages? John?
New York State is going to have to look at many things in a very different way than it has in the past. The debt that we have is structural in nature, and it's from decades of misuse and abuse. In order to put more pressure on our funding and the availability of it, something is going to have to go. So I would work to answer this question with both parties in order to determine what must go in order to fund that, so we could continue to do that.
Thank you.
You're
Dia?
So affordable daycare, childcare, continues to be a problem that burdens the working families of New York. There is not enough of it, and there's not enough at an affordable rate. So it keeps our parents from being fully employed, and it also burdens the educational system, because sometimes they look to education for that child care. So we need to find options. We need to fund it where it is available. And it also, good child care allows parents to go to work, and working people are what provide the fuel for our economy. So yeah, single family or single parent households also need it. And there is just not enough of it. And we need more, and we need to look to our funding sources that can provide that safe childcare for them.
Thank you. Dia, are you in favor of increasing unemployment benefits and minimum wage?
Yes. So I believe that that these both drive the economy. Okay, it helps. Unemployment benefits help us when we are not obviously out of work, and so that we can move forward, stay as a functioning part of the economy, to continue to work on retraining and moving forward with respect and dignity, as well as working people need to make a living wage. And if you are working 3 jobs in a gig economy, the reality is that you do need to make enough money to pay your rent, to buy food at the supermarket, and to put sneakers on your kids.
Thank you. John?
Looking at it in isolation, it's a wonderful idea. However, the two have to be decoupled. I am in favor of some reform with respect to unemployment benefits. However, raising the minimum wage, I would not do. We already have the highest minimum wage in the country. And when that is compiled with the other structural economic components, highest taxes in the country, highest minimum wage and highest out migration, second highest utility rates in the country. All of that makes an environment that contributes to the crippling of businesses. In order for businesses to prosper and employ people, they have to have an environment free of these things that cause them to not be able to be prosperous.
Thank you. John, in light of the problems across the country around police shootings and brutality and our inequitable justice system, how would you improve policing and the criminal justice system in New York State?
It's a wonderful question. I'm glad you answered that. As I said in my opening statement, the first thing that has to be done is the entire law enforcement community has to know that their elected leaders have their backs and will enable them to do their job, which I will very strongly. I am an ardent supporter of law enforcement, and I want to make it very clear on the record that if we don't have public security and the rule of law in place, where we allow anarchy to rule our streets and the destruction of people's businesses that they put their lives and fortunes into, we have nothing and society fails. I won't allow that. I want to be part of the answer, part of the team that solves this. And this goes hand in hand with bail reform. It goes hand in hand with ensuring that public security is number one, because if we're afraid that a brick's going to come through our window and our business is going to be destroyed, we can't employ anyone and our economy fails.
Thank you. Dia?
You're welcome.
So as an elected official, I have been a supporter of law enforcement. I've been able to influence leadership on the local police department, the Auburn Police Department. I am a supporter of law enforcement. One of the things that happened in Auburn when we had new leadership was there was a cultural shift in the Auburn Police Department toward 21st century policing, which includes a changing in cultures, encouraging cultural diversity training, both internal and for other elected officials as well. There is not anarchy in our streets. In Auburn, New York, we have a forward-thinking police department, and in Cayuga County, who took a knee with protesters and understood and continued outreach. We have a program of community outreach of our police, have coffee with a cop, SROs. The police department in Auburn, New York is moving forward with 21st century practices.
Dia, how can we support our police dealing with people experiencing unusual stress, including mental health issues, food insecurity, unemployment, and homelessness?
So again, this issue of community policing comes into play, right? Where the police are guardians, not warriors. They are part of the community, and they live in the community that they serve, and they meet the people where they are. So as they are in our schools, and they are in our restaurants and meeting people. So those are things that can help. And also the outreach and the coordination between all of the agencies. Our mental health agency here in Cayuga County is a wonderful place, and there's a wonderful relationship between law enforcement and that organization, as well as between our first responders as well. And there also is the training to recognize when this is a mental health issue or when it is a family issue versus an issue that would require police intervention or something like that. So it's sensitivity training.
Thank you. Thank you. John?
The police have probably the toughest job in our society, and recognizing that all budgets are limited, the first thing I would do is ensure that the police are not defunded and that they are funded and resourced and trained appropriately, with them bearing on that, with them having a voice in that conversation to let their elected officials understand what they need. I know when I speak to police officers, I get a very different opinion of how they feel that their society in New York State, in this district, is treating them. And I will work to ensure that all of the services necessary, and your point about mental health is critical to this, are in place. And if we are able to increase funding for those things that we're not currently doing, then of course we would do that.
Thank you. We now have a couple questions on healthcare issues. Do you believe, and John, you'll answer first. Do you believe in universal healthcare access? If so, what will you do to make it a reality for all New Yorkers? If not, why not?
Universal health access is something that I think every American should have if they don't. And I think that with respect to the way our medical system is currently set up, I don't think anybody's ever turned down for emergency appointments if they, for emergency room visits if they go. We are there all the time with our kids. And I would say that with respect to, again, it all comes down to the budget available to either maintain or enhance services. And so if we can do that, I think the enhancement of services is always a good thing. But in the environment that we find ourselves in, the macroeconomic environment, I think we have to maintain and or perhaps even curtail services as we go forward.
Thank you. Dia?
Healthcare is a human right. I believe in the New York State Healthcare Act. I believe that all people deserve health care, and they don't need to worry about where and when it's going to be paid for. Under the circumstances right now with COVID-19, the reality is so many problems have been exacerbated because people didn't seek out medical attention at the start of their disease, and then it ended up to be a crisis situation for those individuals. So the security of having health care, of being able to go to a doctor is extraordinarily important, and the ability to keep your health care that you currently have if it's part of your benefits package. And I think that the current healthcare proposals in New York State are addressing that, and I'm proud of New York for that.
Okay. Dia, what measures would you take to assure basic health care for all residents? And how would you address the high cost of health care?
Well, I'm a believer in tax the rich. I think that can provide us some revenue in New York State. We need to close some tax loopholes and take a look at that. I think that that's an area where we can increase revenue so that services can be applied. Certainly, we need to make sure that that services are provided to all. We do have a deficit, but we need to look at what our priorities are as we move forward and make sure that those basic human rights are covered. As I said before, that should be a priority. Health, education, those are important issues that should not be cut.
Thank you. John?
Any functioning society has good healthcare and does not deny that to its citizens. And I think that that we can do what we're doing better. One of the things is that we should do here is a permanent moratorium on unfunded mandates. Again, everything comes back to the state's budget. And as we drive people away, our problems, all of them, our economic problems, our healthcare problems, our policing problems, they're all exacerbated as people are driven out from policies and our population decreases. The outmigration that we've experienced as a result of these policies has hurt us immensely. And the only way to improve our healthcare is to have people coming into New York, not taxing is driving people away. And so I don't want to drive people away. I want people to come here and feel like they can. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John, do you support diversity training for all employers and employees, public and private, in New York State?
Yes, absolutely. I have done this every year of my military career. I have led every single demographic of American society. And I think that that's very important. And when you get people together and have to form a team, when there are 10 different ethnic groups and different social groups, it's really the magic of America to see that disparate group of people turn into a highly functional team, regardless of what their job is. So absolutely, I think I have done this training myself in industry. I've done it in the military, and I've probably done it 33 times or so. And I think it's very valuable.
Thank you. Dia?
You're welcome.
I agree. Diversity training is very important. Diversity sensitivity is very important. And I think that it would help us through so much of what we deal now in society. So yeah, I think that that's just a yes. I don't think I really need to expound on it.
Okay. I now have two questions on climate change. So Dia, you'll answer the first one first. What further legislation would you introduce to slow down and mitigate the harms of climate change in our geographically diverse state?
We need to reduce fossil fuels. We need to do everything in our power to go ahead and just try to stop it where we're bleeding. You know, the reality is that we need to prevent current changes in the climate any way we can. We need to clean up some of the problems that we have here in central New York. We have our Finger Lakes, which are have symptoms of global climate disruption. They have harmful algal blooms in them and invasive species, which are threatening our drinking water. So we need to stop. We need to prevent it from occurring more. We need to clean up what has happened, and we need to provide funding for emergency situations that arise because of global climate change. We have extreme weather events, and we have other threats that happen as a result of this situation.
Thank you, Dia. John?
Well, there's nothing wrong with cleaning up our own neighborhood. The problem with this topic is that the rest of the world doesn't do it. And so that puts us in a dilemma of, should we harm our economy in order for this global endeavor when the rest of the world, many parts of the rest of the world, the greatest polluters are not doing that. I am all about research and development. I am all about multi-fuel use and expansion, and I am all about agricultural practices. As a board member of the Onondaga County Soil and Water Conservation District, we employ funding from all different sources to do all kinds of public works projects impacting this in a favorable way. And I would look forward to not only expanding that, but continuing that work.
Okay. Dia has asked for an additional 30 seconds rebuttal. Sheila, please go ahead, Dia.
So we can look at this as something that doesn't affect us. It's something that's out there in the world, and it doesn't matter because we don't get hurricanes in central New York. But the reality is the effects of global climate change are affecting us on a daily basis. It is affecting our Finger Lakes and our Kettle Lakes. They are part of our economy. They are part of our health. They are part of our property values. They are part of our well-being. Tourism, recreation comes from those Finger Lakes, and it's happening because of global climate disruption.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to our regular order. So John, you'll answer this next one first. Okay.
Okay.
Climate change is here now and is getting much worse. 99% of the world climate scientists say human use of fossil fuels is one of the primary causes. Do you agree? If so, how would you, as an elected government official, act to slow down climate change?
As I said previously, I think I am all about research and development into multi-fuel technical enhancement. I'd love to invite you out to my farm to see the things I've done personally. I have a solar array on my home. I run 4 of my pastures, the water to all of them via solar. I run my electric fences via solar. These are simple little things that, done across the scale of a farm, a community, a state, a country, make a difference. So I am all for expansion of multi-fuel use. And as things the increase in battery power, nuclear power, the efficiencies gained there, I think are immense, as well as the bioreactors that we're starting to use on farms. That all of these contribute a little bit, and a little bit all over makes a lot.
Thank you. Dia?
So I would like to reiterate what my colleague said. A little bit means a lot. So if it's a global issue, then every little bit moves us toward a better place, whether it's global or local, whether you're recycling at home, whether you're putting solar panels on your house. Renewable energy offers economic benefits as well. So renewable energy plans can lead to jobs, they can lead to employment. I'm not, the community energy, it's a long name, act that passed in 2019 has New York State investing in wind power that is going to be placed in the Long Island Sound, which moves us towards that 2050 goal of moving away from carbon emissions. And I think that that is a good project, and it will bring jobs and it will bring energy to our communities, solar energy, any other way to get our energy other than how we have been doing.
Thank you. Dia, what should New York State do to help our small farmers survive? And do you support using subsidies or credits to help these farmers? Dia?
Absolutely. So things that are in the works in New York State right now are farmers markets expansion, farmers markets in our communities, in our parks. Those are things that can help. Agricultural districts are things that are in the works. Right now, there's a farm workforce retention credit that I support, changing that over the next few years from $600 to $1,200. There is a program for to expand the farm to school line, which is taking us from including lunch programs. So we have farms that produce food. They go to our cafeterias, and right now we're only doing that at lunchtime, but we could be doing that at breakfast time too. And so to make that farm to school step a little easier, and we know that dairy farms, absolutely, which are part of our world, provide breakfast food.
Thank you, Dia. John?
Thank you for the opportunity. There are many things, and yes, I do support subsidies for farms, because in today's environment, they wouldn't survive without them. Some of the things specifically, though, that are necessary are enhanced access to capital, and Farm Bureau is doing a wonderful job with many initiatives in trying to help farmers along this line. The entire farm credit system needs to be enhanced. We just had our Farm Bureau meeting last night, where we went over all the resolutions necessary that are going to be put forth in the coming year. This is also made better by things like greater capacity for slaughter across New York State. All farms, all commodities need help in this area, and it's critical that we get that to them.
Thank you. John, what kind of support and assistance do small businesses in New York State need at this time?
Small businesses are the engine to our economy, and right now there are 600,000 small businesses in New York employing 4.2 million people, and those businesses need specific, whether they're a farm or a technical business, they need access to capital in order to grow. And so the overall environment of deregulation, lower taxes, lower minimum wage, so that the businesses can survive, so that perhaps we can raise the minimum wage as necessary over time, all of those things help. Small businesses right now, in order to prosper, need a lot of help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So small businesses have been extraordinarily burdened by the COVID-19 crisis. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to get them support in the form of grants, of 0% loans, doing anything we can to reinvigorate them and to reinvigorate them fast. They employ a lot of people. We need to get those people back to work. So anything that we do along those lines to create a situation where we can get back to work after the COVID-19 environment. So the very first thing that we need to do is to just make them sound, to get them back on their feet, to help them along, to do what we can through the agencies of New York State to support that, because that will help us to bounce back from this terrible, terrible crisis that we are in.
Thank you. Dia, what should New York State do to address the problem of runoff from farms and roads into our lakes and streams?
So there are a lot of things that we can do to help. So over here in Cayuga County, into the Owasco Watershed Management Council does a lot of work with rebuilding the culverts that go around our streets and roads that are near our lakes. We have projects here that are rebuilding our stream banks, which are helping us to keep runoff from ending up in our lakes when there are high water events. Over here in Cayuga County, in the south end of the county, it's a wonderful project called the Owasco Flats project, where they are rehabbing the marshland, and they are also building riparian barriers, and those barriers will help when there are high water events, so that the runoff and the sediment doesn't go into our lakes.
Thank you. John?
Thank you again. There are lots of things that go into this. Number one is continuance and expansion of protection of land. Now the Skaneateles Lake watershed has 12% of its land permanently protected for this very purpose, and that's increasing every year. I am an advocate of that, and will fight to do that. Erosion control is another tactic and technique that can be used here, both for deflection and diversion, and followed by the Owasco Lake Association and the Onondaga. All of the counties are doing great work with invasive species reduction, which have critical impacts here. If we lose all of the hemlock trees in the Finger Lakes area, this problem will be exacerbated considerably due to the woolly algid, and lots of great work is going on because of that. I back that. And as well as the salinity of the lakes is increasing over time. And if we could do something about road salt, I would stop that.
Okay, thank you, John. Dia would like 30 seconds more for a rebuttal. Sheila? Go ahead, Dia.
So part of the runoff problem has led to the event of harmful algal blooms in our lakes. In the city of Auburn, we ended up with microcystin toxin that ended up in the finished drinking water, and we had to react in an emergency situation. We have to take care of this problem of runoff that's contributing to this these HABs quicker. We need to prevent, we need to clean up, and we need to react in emergency situations.
Thank you. Okay, John, you'll answer this one first, and it's we have two questions now on education issues. So John, how would you provide for more equitable education funding for pre-K through grade 12 students in all areas of New York State?
That's a really important question, and a really tough one to solve. We have not done that yet. And I want to say that we have the highest money paid per student in New York with some of the worst results, and that budget is exploding. So the equitable distribution comes down to the formula of how the 23 sources of funding are put out to the schools. So enhancing that formula, working through it with educators, with with both sides, Republicans and Democrats, to solve this problem is the only way to do it. What we've been doing isn't, as we know, hence the nature of your question, isn't working for us.
Thank you. Dia?
Equitable funding and distribution of our educational budget is something that's extraordinarily important to me. What is happening in our funding is that the formula is broken. The formula, when applied, gives uneven funding to different sized school districts, and the formula is based on property values. So unfortunately, areas where property values are low still are underfunded, and areas where property values are high are still unfunded. As well as the way that it's built is that it creates a donut hole of funding and that disadvantages small rural school districts and small city school districts. So right now in the Auburn Enlarged City School District, the funding formula leaves us with 40% less funding per student from the average. Other school districts, not as much, but the entire 126th is underfunded. So no matter what happens, we need to make sure it's fixed.
Thank you. Dia, what criteria would you set for assuring all residents have access to an affordable college education?
I work at a community college. I'm a professor of mathematics. I understand the value of our community colleges as a link to higher education, as a link to the growth of our economy, and as a link to just to a better way of life. Our community colleges have had flat funding for 15 years. Flat funding for 15 years is not allowing them it's forcing them to raise tuition. It is forcing them to cut full-time faculty. So there are many issues with regard to community colleges and how they're funded. We need to prop them up and support them. The 126th Assembly District is served by 3 community colleges. Tompkins Cortland Community College is just outside, Cayuga Community College is inside, and Onondaga Community College is just outside as well. So these are important links to affordable college for our students, for our community, and they are economic drivers.
Thank you. John?
Yes, they are economic drivers. I firmly agree that affordable education is imperative for our youth today. I'd also like to see the politics come out of our schools and colleges, and as well as funding for BOCES, because college, every kid doesn't want to go to college. And I'd like to see enhancement in BOCES education for kids that want to go into the trades. And that's valuable for our society. It's valuable for our communities, and it helps those, it balances the opportunity for all students. So I want to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind here, and that we provide opportunity for all students. The specific funding for community colleges, that is, as you said, again, the nature of the question, it's critical. And I think that looking at how to maintain that is something that both parties need to agree on and go after.
Thank you. John, does the New
Yes.
York State tax system need overhauling? And if so, how? Would you do away with property taxes? And how would you handle unfunded state mandates? As I said last night, all in 1 minute.
Right, I can't solve this problem in 1 minute. I would say property tax has to be lowered. Taxes overall in New York have to be lowered. We have the highest taxes in the country. Unfunded mandates, I am squarely against any more unfunded mandates. These don't do our communities any good. It makes the jobs of our supervisors nearly impossible, and it doesn't help us. That at the end of the day, if we've got more going out than we're taking in, we're doing something wrong, and we've been doing this wrong structurally for decades. So the particular problem that we find ourselves in today, the 14 billion debt, isn't the result of any one thing. It's a structural problem that's the result of many things, which is acting as one of our highest out migration drivers. And this is sad for us all. So this is something that is critical to pursue.
Thank you. Dia?
So if you want to relieve the tax burden of New Yorkers, one of the biggest tax burdens that property owners have is the school tax. So when when school taxes or school funds are unevenly distributed, those taxes that need to be paid to support our schools end up going up. It ends up being an additional tax burden on our homeowners. So my first answer to that is let's fix the school funding distribution so that that school tax does not burden our homeowners and our property owners. The other issue here is I believe in the 2% tax cap. Let's make it transparent. Let's make it a real 2% tax cap. We also should remove the supermajority needed to override the tax cap so that when a community is in need, they are able to do that. We need to make the formula transparent.
Thank you. Dia, many rural areas do not have adequate access to Wi-Fi. This is a particular problem during the pandemic. What would you do as a legislator to provide Wi-Fi access to everyone in the state?
So Wi-Fi, internet, it needs to be treated as a utility. It is not entertainment television. It is not video games. It is our education. It is part of our workforce, right? So we learned that during our most recent pandemic when everyone had to work from home and people had to go to school via the internet. Some people didn't have adequate internet to homeschool, adequate internet to work from home. It became a huge expense for those individuals, but we saw a real divide in the haves and the have-nots. Onondaga County is in the 126. It has 90% internet adoption, but Cayuga County and Chenango County are near 70%, only near 70%. And Cortland County does a little bit better. They're at about 82%. But the issue is that it needs to be treated as a utility. It needs to be treated as a necessity for life.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. First of all, I want to break that down. There are 54,000 households, of which only 46,000 have a PC, leaving approximately 8,000 in the 126th Assembly District that are unwired. I know this firsthand. Our home, our children had to deal with this. My wife solved this problem for our street and got our street connected. And so our town didn't do that. My wife did that. And I want to make sure that everybody listening understands that I know how critically important this is and how disproportionately impactful it is to our number one industry in the 126th Assembly District, our rural families. So there's no argument for me that this must be done. It must be done quickly, and it must be done so it does not disadvantage our children in rural families throughout this district.
Thank you. In a similar question, many people are concerned about the cost of cable, cell phone access, and Wi-Fi. What actions would you support to ensure everyone can afford these essential services? John?
I think this needs, again, bipartisan pursuit and support to put the pressure on these companies to reduce those costs. Some of the things that they do are just absolutely crazy. And then when you need them, for example, I'm going to put a picture out on this very soon. We've wanted the cable company to pick up a wire that they've left on our property for a year and a half now. Do you think we can get them to do that? We can't. And I'm running for office. And so I hope they're listening to this right now, because I'm going to come after them, and I'm going to come after them on behalf of every New Yorker.
Thank you. Yeah.
So once we treat it as a utility, it becomes part of our way of life, right? So the difference between treating it as a for-profit business and solely in that model is that when you treat something as a utility, then it forces the businesses to get it to everyone, such as water, such as electricity. Not that those things are to everyone, but they're closer to fully being built out networks than our broadband is. So when you treat it as a utility, then you can ask the for-profit businesses to, or require rather, the for-profit businesses to build it out. They don't have to build it out. It's based on a profit model right now. And if there's not enough houses or not enough people, they're not going to go there. So that's why we have basic cable that people can get. We have basic telephone services that people can get. It's because it is a utility, it is a necessity for life. And that's the way that it should be done.
Thank you. Dia, what is your position on compulsory vaccinations for children to attend school? And will you add the coronavirus vaccination to this list when we have a safe and reliable vaccine?
So I believe that vaccination and the requirement for it to occur is in the medical community. We have a fully blown out medical community that will give us the advice as to what childhood diseases are dangerous in a school environment. They will advise not only the other people in New York State, the education department, they will advise the individual school boards as well. So I believe that those conversations should happen between medical professionals and educators. We do know that in this time of COVID-19, that we know that schools are places where a lot of people congregate. So that makes them places where disease is easily transmitted. So what diseases those are, we have to take the advice of our medical professionals as to which one should be mandated. And so I'm a strong believer in taking the time, taking the time to think that out.
Thank you. John?
Thank you again. First, parents and caregivers have a voice here, and I want them to know that I will listen. Additionally, anything medical has to be deferred to the medical professionals, and I'm a proponent of that. I also want everyone to understand that I come from the perspective, as does every veteran, of being forced to have all kinds of series of vaccinations for everywhere you're going. So I understand the fear that this can cause in someone, especially a parent or a caregiver, especially if someone that might be compromised in some way, and when you take away their choice. And so, again, I am not a fan of compulsory vaccinations unless it is absolutely necessary. I know many people that don't even take flu vaccinations, even when they're free. So I want everyone to know that they have a voice in this, and that our medical community has to come and speak to this very loudly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John, since the pandemic is far from over and other pandemics are likely in our future, what should we be doing now to get through this? And how should we be preparing for the future?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that. One of the things that we can do to prepare for the future is capture all of the lessons learned and open kimono. Everybody let out the mistakes that they made. You know, our society has a lot to gain from that, and that's a leadership. That's a leadership thing for leaders to do, and so that has to happen at the state level and the national level, and even the local level where appropriate. I think that as we face potentially future pandemics, this is the second one that we've had in 10 years. There are a lot of things that can go wrong, and we were probably lucky in that in recognizing every death is a tragedy. We were probably very lucky that we only experienced 200,000 deaths so far in our country. This could have gone much worse, and I think that preparing, understanding, modeling, and listening to modeling makes a difference.
Thank you. Dia?
So I think that we did learn from the Spanish flu epidemic of the early last century, that that cities and places that reacted well for public health and reacted together did suffer less. I think that we have to listen to our medical professionals. We have to, of course, when this is all over, we'll go back and we'll take a look and we'll look at the lessons learned here. But right now, in this moment, I think that some of the lessons that we are learning is wear a mask, listen to your public health advisors, listen to your community, look to your newspaper for good information. We have some wonderful local newspapers that we have throughout this district, and those local newspapers have provided so much information about what is happening in my community. So those are things that we need to heed right at this moment in time. Then we can look back after it's over.
Thank you. And we have one more question. Dia, you'll answer first. What are the areas of our district that need the most attention, and how will you attend to them?
I don't think that any area necessarily, geographic area, could I ask for clarification? Geographic area or?
I have the questions the way they were,
Okay.
provided
All
from
right.
the public.
So I believe that our educational system and the funding of our educational is very important. That's something that is a core value and that needs addressing, that hasn't been addressed in a long time. Global climate change and disruption is affecting us every day. I believe those are some major issues. COVID-19 is the major issue. I think we need to recover our well-being. We need to recover our economy, and we just need to recover our quality of life because it's just been so tough. So as far as the major area of those are the major areas that I believe need attention.
Thank you, Dia. John?
Thank you very much. First of all, public safety. Again, public safety is paramount. I want all law enforcement to understand that I am behind them 110%. Next, the economy and kids back to school. We have to get our kids back to school so that people can go back to work, so our economy can open fully, so that we can take advantage of our economic engine and continue to build it. Followed by stopping out migration and seriously trying to stop that, because every family that leaves my street has lost 2 families to the state of Tennessee in the last 4 years. And that's just one anecdote. New York has lost 1.4 million people since 2010, 181,000 in 2019 alone. Every person that leaves exacerbates the problem. So we have to stop that if we're serious about stopping our problems and reversing the trends, followed by business deregulation and tax structural reform.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now we will ask for the candidates' closing statements of 2 minutes. Since John did the first opening statement, John will also present the first closing statement. John?
Thank you. I know what it means to serve, and have already quietly served you for decades in many capacities and often under extremely demanding circumstances. I hope my honorable service, business, industry, and agricultural experience are things that you value. The stakes are high, and our disaster state policies are driving New Yorkers away in record numbers, as is shown by our impending loss of at least 1 more or possibly even 2 congressional seats. I hope you additionally recognize my technical knowledge and commitment to maintaining our pristine local water quality, enhanced carbon footprint reduction, renewable energy commitment, and all of which are things we practice on our farm, and steadfast support for the Second Amendment, necessity of bail reform and SAFE Act reform, as well as reform across many other areas important to all New Yorkers, including the RHA, business deregulation, agricultural policy enhancement and protection, and commitment to infrastructure upgrades. Most importantly, I want you to know that I have and have demonstrated the character attributes that are missing in many politicians, like decisiveness, respect, integrity, work ethic, and simply doing things for the right reason. Last, as I ask you for your vote, I hope you'll remember that as a business owner and farmer, I have a huge personal stake in New York's success and already work every day to ensure that on our mutual behalf.
Thank you.
You're
Dia?
welcome.
So as a New Yorker, I'm deeply concerned about COVID-19, the pandemic which threatens our well-being. Our physical wellness is threatened, as well as our economic soundness and our quality of life. This will take precedent over all the issues that are before us. We will need leaders that we trust and leaders with empathetic hearts making decisions. We will need representation in the majority house to be heard by leadership. We will need representation with the ability to act. Decisions that affect us will be made swiftly by those in power. I'm concerned about our fresh water bodies and the waterways, how they are threatened by global climate disruption. We have harmful algal blooms in our lakes and invasive species in our water and in our trees that threaten our water quality. We run the risk of being overlooked in Albany again. This is not new. This is something that we have endured for multiple decades. Rural communities and small cities, we have lacked representation in the position to provide funding back to our communities. Our school districts, we watch as others are funded. My experience as an elected officer will help me to hit the ground running. Our communities of Central New York deserve better. Our communities of Central New York deserve representation in the majority. I ask you to trust me with your vote on November 3rd. I thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to participate in this forum. And I thank the people of the 126th Assembly District for taking the time to spend with us on these issues. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the candidates for participating in this forum. Thanks also to the many members of the Leagues of Women Voter of Cortland County and Syracuse metropolitan area who spent multiple hours organizing the event. For more information about these candidates and voting, please go to the website vote411.org. That's VOTE411.org. A quick reminder that October 27th is the last day to postmark an application for an absentee ballot by mail. Absentee ballots are also available by emailing or calling your own county board of elections. All completed absentee ballots must be postmarked or delivered to your county board of elections by November 3rd. Early voting will be available from October 24th through November 1st. You can go to the website nyearlyvoting.org, which will be shown on the screen in a minute, to find the locations and hours for early voting in your county. And please vote. Your vote does count. Thank you. Good evening. Stay well and safe.
Thank you.